Have another beer first. I did. There are, said Mark, more poisonous snakes per square metre of ground on Komodo than on any equivalent area on Earth. There is in Melbourne a man who probably knows more about poisonous snakes than anyone else on Earth. His name is Dr. Struan Sutherland, and he has devoted his entire life to a study of venom. "And I'm bored of talking about it," he said, when we went along to see him the next morning, laden with tape recorders and notebooks. "Can't stand all these poisonous creatures, all these snakes and insects and fish and things, wretched things biting everybody, and then people expect me to tell them what to do about it. I'll tell them what to do. Don't get bitten in the first place. That's the answer. I've had enough of telling people all the time. Hydroponics, now that's interesting. Talk to all you like about hydroponics. Fascinating stuff, growing plants artificially in water, very interesting technique. We'll need to know all about it if we're going to go to Mars and places. Where did you say you were going?" "Komodo." "Well, don't get bitten, that's all I can say. And don't come running to me if you do, because you won't get here in time, and anyway, I've got enough on my plate. Look at this office, full of poisonous animals all over the place. See this tank? It's full of fire ants, venomous little creatures. What are we going to do about them? Anyway, I've got some little cakes in case you were hungry. Would you like some little cakes? Can't remember where I put them. There's some tea, but it's not very good. Sit down, for heaven's sake. So, you're going to Komodo. Well, I don't know why you want to do that, but I suppose you have your reasons. There are 15 different types of snake on Komodo, and half of them are poisonous. The only potentially deadly ones are the Russell's viper, the bamboo viper, and the Indian cobra. The Indian cobra is the 15th deadliest snake in the world, and all the other 14 are here in Australia. That's why it's so hard for me to find time to get on my hydroponics with all these snakes all over the place. And spiders. The most poisonous spider is the Sydney funnel web. We get about 500 people a year bitten by spiders. A lot of them used to die, so we had to develop an antidote to stop people bothering me with it all the time. Took us years. Then we developed the snake bite detector kit. Not that you need a kit to tell you when you've been bitten by a snake, you usually know, but the kit is something that will detect what type you've been bitten by so you can treat it properly. Would you like to see a kit? I've got a couple here in the venom fridge. Let's have a look. Oh, look, the cakes are in here too. Quick, have one while they're still fresh. Fairy cakes, I baked them myself. He handed round the snake venom detection kits and his home-baked fairy cakes and retreated back to his desk, where he beamed at us cheerfully from behind his curly beard and bow tie. We admired the kits, which were small, efficient boxes neatly packed with tiny needles, a pipette, a syringe, and a complicated set of instructions that I wouldn't want to have to read for the first time in a panic. And then we asked him how many of the snakes he'd been bitten by himself. "None of them," he said. "Another area of expertise I've developed is that of getting other people to handle the dangerous animals. Won't do it myself. Don't want to get bitten, do I? You know what it says on my book jackets? Hobbies? Gardening, with gloves. Fishing, with boots. Travelling, with care. That's the answer. What else? Well, in addition to the boots, wear thick, baggy trousers, and preferably have half a dozen people tramping along in front of you, making as much noise as possible. The snakes pick up the vibrations and get out of your way, unless it's a death adder, otherwise known as the deaf adder, which just lies there. People can walk straight past it and over it and nothing happens. I've heard of 12 people in a line walking over a death adder, and the 12th person accidentally trod on it and got bitten. Normally you're quite safe if you're 12th in line. You're not eating your cakes. Come on, get them down here. There's plenty more in the venom fridge." We asked tentatively if we could perhaps take a snake bite detector kit with us to Komodo. Of course you can, of course you can. Take as many as you like. Won't do you a blind bit of good, because they're only for Australian snakes. "So, what do we do if we get bitten by something deadly, then?" I asked. He blinked at me as if I was stupid. "Well, what do you think you do?" he said. "You die, of course. That's what deadly means." "Well, what about cutting open the wound and sucking out the poison?" I asked. "Well, rather you than me," he said. "I wouldn't want a mouthful of poison. I shouldn't do you any harm, though. Snake toxins have a high molecular weight, so they won't penetrate the blood vessels in the mouth the way that alcohol or some drugs do. And then the poison gets destroyed by the acids in your stomach. But it's not necessarily going to do much good, either. You're not likely to be able to get much of the poison out, but you're probably going to make the wound a lot worse trying. And in a place like Komodo, it means you'd quickly have a seriously infected wound to contend with, as well as a leg full of poison. Septicemia, gangrene, you name it, it'll kill you." "Well, what about a tourniquet?" "Well, fine, if you don't mind having your leg off afterwards. You'd have to, because if you cut off the blood supply to it completely, it'll just die. If you can find anyone in that part of Indonesia you'd trust to take your leg off, then you're a braver man than me. Now, I'll tell you, the only thing you can do is apply a pressure bandage direct to the wound and wrap the whole leg up tightly, but not too tightly. Slow the blood flow, but don't cut it off, or you'll lose the leg. Hold your leg, or whatever bit of it is you've been bitten in, lower than your heart and your head. Keep very, very still. Breathe slowly, and get to a doctor immediately. If you're on Komodo, that means a couple of days, by which time you'll be well dead. Now, the only answer, and I mean this quite seriously, is don't get bitten. There's no reason why you should. Any of the snakes there will get out of your way well before you even see them. You don't really need to worry about the snakes if you're careful. No, the things you really need to worry about are the marine creatures. What? Well, scorpionfish, stonefish, sea snakes, much more poisonous than anything on land. Get stung by a stonefish and the pain alone can kill you. People drown themselves just to stop the pain. Where are all these things? Just in the sea. Tons of them. I wouldn't go near it if I were you. Full of poisonous animals. Hate them. Is there anything you do like? Yes, he said. Hydroponics. We flew to Bali. David Attenborough has said that Bali is the most beautiful place in the world, but he must have been there longer than we were and seen different bits, because most of what we saw in the couple of days we were there sorting out our travel arrangements was awful. It was just the tourist area, i.e. that part of Bali which has been made almost exactly the same as everywhere else in the world for the sake of the people who have come all this way to see Bali. The narrow, muddy streets of Kuta were lined with gift shops and hamburger bars and populated with crowds of drunken, shouting tourists, kamikaze motorcyclists, counterfeit watch sellers and small dogs. The kamikaze motorcyclists tried to pick off the tourists and the small dogs, while the tiny minibus, which we spent most of the evening in, shuttling our bags from one full hotel to another, hurtled through the motorcyclists and counterfeit watch sellers at video game speeds. Somewhere not too far from here, towards the middle of the island, there may have been heaven on earth, but hell had certainly set up business on its porch. The tourists, with their cans of lager and their fuck-off T-shirts, were particularly familiar to anyone who has seen the English at play in Spain or Greece. But I suddenly realized as I watched this that for once I didn't need to hide myself away in embarrassment. They weren't English. They were Australian. But they were otherwise so nearly identical that it started me thinking about convergent evolution, which I had better explain before I go on to say why they made me think of it. In different parts of the world, strikingly similar but completely unrelated forms of life will emerge in response to similar conditions and habitats. For instance, the aye, the lemur Mark and I originally tracked down in Madagascar, has one particularly remarkable feature. Its third finger is much longer than its other fingers and is skeletally thin, almost like a twig. It uses this finger for poking around under the bark of the trees it lives in to dig out the grubs which it feeds on. There is one other creature in the world which does this, and that is the long-fingered possum, which is found in New Guinea. It has a long and skeletally thin fourth finger, which it uses for precisely the same purpose. There is no family relationship between these two animals at all, and the only common factor between them is this: an absence of woodpeckers. There are no woodpeckers in Madagascar and no woodpeckers in Papua New Guinea. This means that there is a food source, the grubs under the bark, going free, and in these two cases it is a mammal which has developed a mechanism for getting at it. And the mechanism they both use is the same. Different finger, same idea. But it is purely the selection process of evolution which has created this similarity, because the animals themselves are not related. Exactly the same behavior pattern had emerged entirely independently on the other side of the world. As in the gift shop habitats of Spain or Greece or indeed Hawaii, the local people cheerfully offer themselves up for insult and abuse in return for money, which they can then spend on further despoiling their habitat to attract more money-bearing predators. "Right," said Mark, when we found some dinner that night in a tourist restaurant with plastic flowers and music and paper umbrellas in the drinks. "Here's the picture. We have to get a goat." "Here?" "No, in Labuan Bajo. Labuan Bajo is on the island of Flores and is the nearest port to Komodo. It's a crossing of about 22 miles across some of the most treacherous seas in the east. This is where the South China Sea meets the Indian Ocean, and it's riddled with cross-currents, riptides and whirlpools. It's very dangerous and could take anything up to 20 hours. "With a goat?"